The small town of Khiam, nestled in the hills of southern Lebanon, became a crucible of war in the summer of 2006. Israeli forces seeking to crush Hezbollah found themselves locked in a fierce battle. Khiam, with its network of fortified bunkers and tunnels, was a cornerstone of Hezbollah's defenses. The battle would challenge the very foundations of Israeli military doctrine. The fighting was intense from the outset. Israeli artillery and airstrikes pounded Hezbollah positions. Each side knew the stakes were high. For Israel, taking Khiam was crucial. For Hezbollah, holding Khiam was a matter of survival. The battle raged for days with heavy casualties on both sides. The outcome was far from certain. Amidst the chaos, a turning point emerged. An eighth rocket salvo exposed the limitations of Israeli tactics. The eighth rocket salvo by Hezbollah sent shockwaves through the Israeli military command. Its accuracy caused alarm. Key infrastructure was hit, disrupting Israeli operations. Hezbollah showed it was a sophisticated fighting force. American advisors recommended a ground invasion of Khiam. The American recommendation ignited a fierce debate within the Israeli government and military establishment. The Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Forces, under pressure to deliver a swift and decisive victory, found himself caught between the cautious approach advocated by some of his generals and the more aggressive stance urged by the Americans and hawkish elements within the government. Political leaders, mindful of public opinion and the need to show resolve, were also divided. Some argued for a measured response, fearing the consequences of a full-scale ground invasion. Others demanded a more forceful approach, believing that only a decisive victory would break Hezbollah's will. The debate was heated and at times acrimonious, reflecting the high stakes and the deep divisions within Israeli society. As the debate raged, the situation on the ground in Khiam continued to deteriorate. Hezbollah fighters, using a network of tunnels and bunkers, were effectively repelling Israeli attacks. The IDF's reliance on air power and artillery was proving ineffective in dislodging the entrenched Hezbollah fighters. It was becoming increasingly clear that a new strategy was needed, one that addressed the realities of urban warfare and the tenacity of the enemy. Hezbollah's defense of Khiam was a testament to their adaptability and tactical acumen. They had anticipated an Israeli invasion and prepared the battlefield accordingly. Their fighters, well-trained and highly motivated, were deployed in small, mobile units, utilizing hit-and-run tactics to harass Israeli forces. They were masters of camouflage and deception, blending seamlessly into the urban landscape. Their network of tunnels and bunkers, constructed over years of preparation, proved highly effective in neutralizing Israel's technological superiority. These underground fortifications provided protection from airstrikes and artillery bombardment, allowing Hezbollah fighters to emerge at will to attack Israeli positions. The tunnels also served as vital supply lines, enabling Hezbollah to maintain a steady flow of weapons, ammunition, and reinforcements. Hezbollah's tactics were based on a deep understanding of the terrain and their enemy. They knew that Israel, with its reliance on air power and aversion to casualties, would be hesitant to commit to a protracted urban battle. They exploited this reluctance, turning Khiam into a deadly maze for the advancing Israeli forces. Their strategy was one of attrition, inflicting casualties and undermining Israeli morale, hoping to force a withdrawal. Section 5. Iron Rain, Meager Results. The Israeli Air Force, renowned for its technological prowess and precision bombing capabilities, unleashed a relentless aerial bombardment on Khiam. Fighter jets and attack helicopters soared overhead, raining down missiles and bombs on suspected Hezbollah positions. The town was engulfed in smoke and fire, its buildings reduced to rubble. Yet, despite the ferocity of the bombardment, Hezbollah's defenses held. The failure of the aerial campaign to dislodge Hezbollah was due in part to the limitations of air power itself. While effective against fixed targets, air power is less so against a mobile and well-concealed enemy. Hezbollah's use of tunnels and bunkers, their ability to disperse their forces, and their mastery of camouflage made them elusive targets. Moreover, the Israeli Air Force's concern for civilian casualties restricted their ability to fully unleash their firepower. Another factor contributing to the ineffectiveness of the air campaign was Hezbollah's sophisticated air defense network. Armed with anti-aircraft missiles and guided by a network of spotters, Hezbollah was able to shoot down several Israeli aircraft, including helicopters and drones. These losses, while relatively small in number, were a blow to Israeli morale and a testament to Hezbollah's growing military capabilities. Section 6. Adapting to a new battlefield. Faced with mounting casualties and the failure of their initial strategy, the IDF was forced to adapt. Recognizing the need for a more robust ground presence, they deployed Brigade 282, an elite infantry unit, and Battalion 411, an armored battalion, to the outskirts of Khiam. These units were tasked with breaching Hezbollah's defenses and seizing control of the town. The deployment of these units marked a shift in Israeli tactics, from a reliance on airpower and artillery to a more ground-centric approach. However, the transition was not smooth. Israeli troops, accustomed to fighting in open terrain, found themselves ill-prepared for the challenges of urban warfare. They were hampered by Hezbollah's network of tunnels and booby traps, and their reliance on heavy armor proved to be a liability in the narrow streets and alleyways of Khiam. Despite these challenges, the IDF made slow but steady progress. Their superior firepower and training eventually began to take a toll on Hezbollah's defenses. Yet the battle for Khiam was far from over. Hezbollah fighters, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, continued to fight with tenacity, determined to hold on to their stronghold. Section 7. Asymmetrical Warfare. Hezbollah's arsenal, while lacking the sophistication of Israel's military, proved surprisingly effective in the battle for Khiam. Their ground-to-ground missiles, while less accurate than those of their enemy, were used to devastating effect against Israeli troop concentrations and logistical hubs. These missiles, often fired from concealed positions within civilian areas, instilled fear and disrupted Israeli operations. Equally significant was Hezbollah's use of unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. While not as technologically advanced as those employed by the Israeli Air Force, Hezbollah's drones served as valuable reconnaissance tools, providing real-time intelligence on Israeli troop movements and positions. They also proved effective in psychological warfare, buzzing Israeli positions and broadcasting propaganda messages. Hezbollah's use of these weapon systems highlighted the changing nature of warfare, where technological superiority no longer guaranteed victory. Their ability to acquire and effectively utilize these weapons, despite facing a crippling arms embargo, demonstrated their resourcefulness and adaptability. It also underscored the challenges faced by conventional militaries in counterinsurgency operations, where the lines between combatants and civilians are often blurred. Section 8. Dismantling a network. The American-Israeli strategy against Hezbollah extended beyond the battlefield. Recognizing that Hezbollah's strength lay not only in its military capabilities but also in its sophisticated network of support, both countries sought to dismantle this infrastructure. This involved targeting Hezbollah's financial resources, disrupting its supply lines, and undermining its political and social influence. The United States, leveraging its global influence, imposed sanctions on individuals and entities suspected of providing financial or material support to Hezbollah. They also worked with regional allies to interdict arms shipments destined for Hezbollah, aiming to cripple its ability to rearm. These efforts, while having some impact, were hampered by Hezbollah's deep roots in Lebanese society and its ability to exploit porous borders and sympathetic actors. Israel, for its part, targeted Hezbollah's leadership and infrastructure within Lebanon. They launched airstrikes against suspected Hezbollah command centers, weapons depots, and training camps. They also attempted to assassinate key Hezbollah figures, believing that decapitating the organization would cripple its ability to function. These efforts, however, were met with mixed success and often resulted in civilian casualties, fueling anti-Israeli sentiment. Section 9. Echoes of a wider conflict. The Battle of Khiam, while geographically confined, resonated far beyond the borders of Lebanon. It was seen as a proxy war between Israel and Iran, Hezbollah's primary backer. Iran, through its support for Hezbollah, sought to bleed Israel and undermine its regional standing. The conflict also exposed the limitations of American power in the Middle East, as the United States, bogged down in Iraq, was unable to prevent the outbreak of hostilities. One particular incident that highlighted the broader geopolitical implications of the conflict was the Night of Bridge Strikes. On this night, Israeli warplanes targeted bridges and infrastructure across Lebanon, aiming to cripple the country's transportation network and isolate Hezbollah. These strikes, while militarily justified by Israel, were widely condemned as disproportionate and indiscriminate, causing widespread damage and civilian casualties. The Night of Bridge Strikes sparked outrage in the Arab world and beyond, fueling anti-Israeli sentiment and bolstering support for Hezbollah. It also highlighted the complexities of the conflict, where military objectives were often intertwined with political considerations and the potential for unintended consequences was high. Section 10. The Legacy of Kiam. The Battle of Khiam was a watershed moment in the Israeli-Hezbollah conflict. It shattered the myth of Israeli invincibility. The battle exposed the limitations of conventional military tactics in asymmetric warfare. For Hezbollah, it was a strategic victory. Their ability to withstand an Israeli offensive bolstered their image as a resistance movement. The battle solidified their control over southern Lebanon. The legacy of Kiam extends beyond the Middle East.